Being just a kid from Maine, people would just shoot me down.
That told me I would never be able to make it to the next level.
They say success is the best revenge. One of the dollars, I'm proving them wrong. Back on the classic, I know it's been long. That they was missing me while I was gone.
Flying flag! Are you serious?
This is something that I've been dreaming about since I was a little kid. That dream just stuck in my head, and I just got to keep working.
The NBA draft is tonight on ABC, ESPN, ESPN Deportes. The second round is tomorrow on ESPN. Coverage begins 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific both nights. The Dallas Mavericks have the first pick and are expected to select Cooper Flagg. Meanwhile, another Celtic is on his way out. Yesterday, Boston sent Kristaps Porzingis in a second-round pick to Atlanta in a 3-team trade with the Hawks and the Nets. This marks the second big offseason move by the Celtics, as we saw Drew Holiday traded to the Blazers Monday. Shams says Boston may just be getting started. Take a listen.
My understanding is the Celtics are getting offers, calls on both Jaylen Brown and Derrick White. The Celtics have high price thresholds for both players. We know how great Jaylen Brown and Derrick White are, so I'm sure they're getting some massive offers, some pretty big time calls as well. Their preference has been to keep both players, but will a team match that price threshold that the Celtics, I'm told, have set around the league for Jaylen Brown and Derrick White to be able to get them? They are listening, but will a team get there?
All right, Bob, you are the architect of the Warriors, the last real dynasty that we've had in the NBA. How would you handle the situation? Would you trade White or would you trade Brown?
No, I wouldn't. Now, look, Brian and I were talking off air. You can answer the phone. Say, okay, I don't want to trade these guys, but if you have something to say, I'll listen. People made offers on Curry. You know, you can't get mad at them. That's their job. Their job is to call. The other teams call, and you just lay it down and say, look, you're gonna have to blow me out of the water, because sometimes people do. Sometimes people make crazy offers, and you go, well, we got to look at that. But with the trades of Porzingis, Molly, and the trades of Holiday, they've put a huge dent. What, $100 million? What's the number they've carved out of the tax?
They've saved over $200 million in luxury tax.
Already.
Yeah.
Already. So they've taken some of that pressure off. Now, if we were sitting here right now and Porzingis is still on the team and Holiday, I'd answer the question differently. But they've alleviated some of that financial pressure in the last, 48, 72 hours, to the degree where now they can really be patient with Brown and White because they did those other things.
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm not even interested in answering this question right now. You distracted me. I want to know when
and who
did you get? And you have to tell. I know you can't say who. I know you can't say who. But I want to know when somebody had the temerity to call you and say, we're calling about acquiring Steph Curry. Now, was this early?
Yeah, much earlier.
It wasn't after. It wasn't after he was in flow and wasn't suffering from the ankle injuries and was winning championships.
The only guy, I'll tell you, he doesn't care. The only guy that would mess around with it was Ainge. But he'd start laughing when he did. He's like, what are you going to do with Curry? This was after Curry was Curry. But you laugh, but because he always loved Ainge, and he loved Curry the whole way through. But no, I mean, look, obviously I love Jaylen Brown and Derrick White. They're not Steph Curry. Jason Tatum, I think, is the guy that people think is the Celtics kind of the center, the pillar. So you might say Jaylen Brown, Derrick White's their second, third best player. It's okay to ask, right? I mean, we saw Luka Doncic.
Yes.
Come on.
A year ago, you would
seriously.
No one have ever.
Seriously.
But what about this? What about this deal, though? The fact that Jason Tatum is hurt and you had already paid Jaylen Brown $300 million, my attitude is find out if he can be a number one for you.
And I think that's
what's wrong with that?
No. I think that's what they're. Well, we're all gonna find out.
I think we're asking the wrong question. I think the real question, and I know it's so different for fans, and I know it's annoying. I'm sorry. The question is, in the modern NBA, can you have two players making this much money and truly build a roster? That's really the question.
Probably not.
It's nothing to do with, is Jaylen Brown a number one? Can these two guys get along and all that stuff? Can we get this guy in the draft? The question is, with how penal it is, can you have a roster that's that top heavy? And you add Derrick White to it, and now you're talking.
Well, we talked about. I mean, in the NFL, they talk about having a quarterback on a rookie scale, right? That's the time you can go pay an edge rusher, you can go pay a receiver, you can go pay somebody. But now in the NBA, what Oklahoma City did was they won a championship with guys on rookie contracts. Boston doesn't have that, and you see them win a championship, but Oklahoma City will have the same issue. in 2-3 years when Jaylen Williams and Chet are making their money. So the real question is, can you have a mature team and a bench? We just talked about Jokic losing some guys. Bruce Brown, that's Alex Caruso in this case. Can you keep a team? We saw the Celtics. I think a lot of it, I thought they were going to win it this last year. They had the injury. I can almost say the injury wasn't the reason they lost, though.
No.
And they were losing.
They were losing.
And so you go, how'd that happen? And they had an unbelievable bench, but we see that cannot last. So your question of can you have two guys making that much money, then you have to really strip down the rest of it.
Do you know that yesterday the Thunder were making calls to move up in the draft?
Yeah, of course.
Because on the parade day, they have 2 picks. They have the 15th pick and like 20-something. Because they know that someday in the foreseeable future, they're going to have a top-heavy team. And maybe the guy that they get at 15 tonight, or maybe they can trade those 2 picks and get somebody at 11 or at an 8.
Forward thinking.
Maybe they can get that guy, and he will replace Lou Dort in 2 years or whatever when they have to make a trade like the Celtics just made today. Because the Thunder realize that this is a new reality.
And the reason that's interesting, what we had, how many last different champions? 7 of the last, is it how many years?
7 in a row.
7 in a row, so nobody's repeated, right?
Nobody.
Not only that, nobody's won the year after that, right? So it's like brand new. That's probably where we're headed to be, and you said this, I'd go to Joe Lakeem and I'd say, hey, you want to bring Iguodala back? And the price was money. It wasn't, if we bring Iguodala back, we're going to lose a pick. We can't trade back and take on more salary. We're limited. All these things the second apron does. And interestingly for owners now, when the fan base would see, they'd say, why don't we go into the tax? Why don't we go into the tax? And the fans don't care, right? You're a fan of a team, spend the money. You got plenty of money. But now owners are able to say, I can't do that anymore because of the second apron. Yeah. So everything's changed.
I tell the story of Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer has $140 billion. $140 billion. There are times when Steve Ballmer, they start an afternoon game, and at the beginning of the game, at the end of the game, his net worth moves by $1 billion, okay? That's what kind of money he has. Now, last year, he saw the second apron rules, and their first order of business was to tell Paul George, we really appreciate it, we'll see you.
And it wasn't for money. It was for this
for flexibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they were like, it wasn't because he couldn't afford to.
That's why we're talking about parity, right? So the hard thing for a GM now is, you talked about Oklahoma City trying to trade up the day of the parade. That's what the thinking has to be. So it can't just be, you're not the Yankees, you can't be the Dodgers, you can't just spend, because the rules are limiting that now.
Yeah, speaking of Oklahoma City, so after winning their first title since moving there, the Thunder coming at #1 in ESPN's way too early NBA power rankings. Guys, let's look at the West Coast. Notice the Warriors coming at #8, and #9 we have the Lakers. So obviously, Bob, former GM of the Warriors, and we're going to bring in Markieff Morris, who's currently on the Lakers roster, and I want to focus in on California here. Did the Lakers or Warriors need to make a bigger splash, Keefe?
I would say the Warriors, right? And I wouldn't really call it a bigger splash. They just need to figure out what they're going to do with Kuminga, right? Are they going to keep growing him and make him an integral part of this team, or are they going to keep playing the up and down, you're not ready, you don't fit game? I think that's the main focus with the Warriors. Like, you have to re-sign them and go get some assets to be able to fit around these guys, or you just have to just let them go and teach them more how to play with these guys. I mean, obviously, it seems like it doesn't work at times, so I think that's the big thing. Obviously, everybody know the Lakers need a big, and that's the most important thing for them. They don't need to move too many core pieces around, because about a month ago, people were picking the Lakers to win the championship, so I don't think they should just erase that part of the team. Just bring in the big, and it's obviously the Warriors with Kuminga. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I think it's easier for the Warriors. I like what Markieff said, because they have Kuminga in their control, right? So you can either keep him, and they have the ability to do that, or sign and trade him and decide if they get something back. So they have an easier ability if it's about Kuminga, because he's probably the easiest piece to elevate the Warriors, because Butler, we know what he's going to do, and Draymond and Curry, obviously, and Podziemski, they've got all these guys around him. I think the team is well built, but Kuminga is kind of that X factor. He's been talked about for, you've talked about him, Stephen A., quite a bit, of what he can be. But if he's not going to be, then what can you get for him? The Lakers is, I think, tougher fix. It's easy. We can sit here and we can all say, Lakers need a big. Okay. As a GM, you go, okay, yeah. Okay, now what? right? They had the idea of trading for Mark Williams, and they offered up quite a bit, and they decided that wasn't a good idea, and the medicals didn't look right. But I can't sit here and say it's easy to go get a big right now that can actually impact winning, that Luka Doncic wants to run the pick and roll with, and LeBron James that they can play at the 5. The Lakers team wore down because Jack said, they stopped playing a 5. And LeBron at the 5 can work. It's like Draymond. These guys, it wears you out. LeBron's a fantastic player, but him at the 5 is very tiresome. So how are they going to go get a 5 that actually impacts them for a team that has championship aspirations? That is easier said than done.
They're holding vastly different hands. The Warriors have up to 4 first-round picks they can trade. They've got pretty much their whole portfolio. But they've also got 3 star players in their mid to late 30s.
And they already gave up a first, right? They
don't have a pick tonight.
They don't have a pick tonight.
Yeah,
right.
But they have their picks going forward.
Yeah.
The Lakers, their sort of franchise player is in his 20s with Luka. But they don't have the same portfolio of picks. They have like 1 pick and 1 swap that they can trade. Now, they do have some expiring salary, but the Warriors are under more pressure to do something now, whereas I think the Lakers, in theory, could take a little bit more time. Now, LeBron doesn't want that. LeBron wants them to make a play now. And by the way, that seems to be their intention. They have made that clear. And the one thing that they've got is August 2nd, Luka. They have to offer Luka a contract.
4 years, $229 million.
He doesn't have to
That's
take
what
it
he
all.
said. He doesn't have to take it. That's what he's eligible for.
What do you think he's going to do?
Take it.
Yeah, I think he's
I know
going
it's going to take some version of
it's going to
it.
take 3 years.
Listen, here's my deal. Here's my deal.
I think it'll be a little lower.
Yeah, hold on, Keith. Here's the deal. So if you're the Los Angeles Lakers, right, you need a big. You just need a big. We know this, okay? I got to think about it. The Mark Williams trade didn't pan out. Obviously, they were willing to trade Dalton Connect, and that didn't work out, and what have you, failed his physical, supposedly. So, ironically, they don't have a first-round pick tonight. They have the number 55 second-round pick.
Their
irony
pick
of that,
tonight
we'll leave that alone.
is in Atlanta for Anthony Davis. Tonight, the Anthony Davis trade finally gets paid
There we
off.
go, right? So now here you have it. You got the Al Horfords of the world, the Lou Cornettes of the world. They're not the only team that need a big, but they desperately need a big. Here's what I would tell you got to watch out for the Los Angeles Lakers. That's why the Lakers would be my answer to this question instead of the Warriors. Dallas is not going away. They're coming. You do not want to be in a situation where you acquired Luka Doncic and Dallas looks better than you. That's a motivation. That's a motivation right there. You can't have that Dallas flourishing and the Lakers going home in the first round when you made that move. Now, I understand for business purposes, okay, Luka's going to sell. And you got a new billionaire owner. He purchased the franchise for $10.1 billion, okay? I got that part. I get all of it. But in the end, just like we said about Dallas, Luka can't be thriving, but Dallas home watching them. They'll want to do some harm to some people, Nico included, okay? That can't happen. And it's in reverse, too. If you Luka with the Lakers, you don't want to be home, but Dallas is ascending.
You can't hold that part against
No, what I'm saying to you is that if you're the Lakers
with
get
Luka
it, but I'm saying you don't want that.
Some things landed their way.
As the famous meme goes, we don't care.
Okay, you got to do something. I mean, if somebody trades for you, okay, and they say you can leave, and they're thriving without you, and you're not thriving where you are, that's not good.
Yeah,
that's not good. You got to make sure that don't happen.
Wanna try to boast at what I look like. Keep them going, try to wear, I pull up long range. Jimmy with the heat, I'm on fire. It's NBA over here,